Let's start with the scene. Picture a regular-looking car parked in a quiet corner of a big box store parking lot long after closing time. You've probably driven past 100 cars just like it. But inside this one, a family is trying to sleep, hoping no one knocks on the window. This isn't some far-off story. This is happening right now, in neighborhoods just like yours.
And here's the thing that's so hard to wrap your head around. That person in the car, they likely went to work today. They clocked in, did their job, and clocked out. They're doing everything they're supposed to do. But when that shift ends, their car is the only home they have to go back to. It's a huge, hidden crisis, and it's happening right under our noses.
So if this is happening all around us, why don't we see it? Well, the tough answer is they don't want to be seen. For these families, being invisible isn't just a preference, it's a matter of survival. They are, in every sense, our invisible neighbors.
You know, when we think of homelessness, our minds often jump to a specific image, maybe tents on a downtown sidewalk. But that's just one tiny piece of the picture. The reality for families in vehicles is the total opposite. They are actively trying to avoid being noticed. They park in suburban shopping centers, on quiet industrial roads, anywhere they can blend in. Staying hidden is how they protect their kids, their job, and their car, which is literally their only asset.
And this is where the official systems completely fail. The main way homelessness is counted is something called a point-in-time count. Basically, volunteers go out on one single night and try to count everyone they see. But think about it. How do you count people whose entire survival strategy is based on not being seen? You just can't. The system is built to find the visible, which means this huge hidden population gets dramatically undercounted, and as a result, largely ignored.
So this brings us to the most jarring part of this whole situation. The fact that a huge number of people living in their cars are employed. They get up every morning, get ready in a gas station bathroom, and go to work.
There's a term for this, the working homeless. And when you first hear it, it sounds like a complete contradiction in terms, right? How can you be working but also be homeless? Well, it's not a paradox. It's just brutal, simple math.
Take a look at this chart. It tells the whole story. For the past decade, rents have been skyrocketing, just going up and up and up. At the same time, wages for so many essential jobs in retail, in food service, in caregiving have barely budged. That massive gap between the two lines, that's not just a statistic. That's a cliff that more and more families are being pushed over.
You know, there's this rule of thumb that financial experts use called the 30% rule. It says you really shouldn't spend more than 30% of your income on housing. It's supposed to leave you enough money for, everything else in life. But check this out. Right now, a staggering 40% of all renters in America are already paying more than that. Many are paying 50% or even more. So when you're already that close to the edge, what happens when just one thing goes wrong?
Because something always goes wrong. And this idea that people slowly drift into homelessness, that's just not how it works for most of these families. The fall from having a home to living in a car is terrifyingly fast.
It usually starts with a single trigger, a sudden medical bill, an unexpected job loss, a divorce. Any savings they had, if they had any at all, are wiped out in a month or two just trying to cover rent. And then the math just stops working. Eviction happens fast. And all of a sudden, the family car transforms from just a way to get to work into the only shelter they have left.
And here's the cruelest irony of all. Once you're in that situation, everything becomes more expensive. Getting a parking ticket you can't afford could lead to your car, your home, getting towed, and the fees to get it back, they can be impossible to pay. It creates a downward spiral where every small setback becomes a potential catastrophe, making it that much harder to ever get back on your feet.
Let that number sink in. Over 1 million students in this country experience homelessness every year, and a huge number of them are trying to get by while living in a car. Just imagine being a kid trying to do homework in the backseat of a car, or trying to focus in class when you didn't get a real night's sleep. They're carrying a burden that no child should ever have to.
So how in the world did we get to this point? Well, this wasn't an accident, and it wasn't inevitable. This crisis has been built policy by policy over decades.
Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking. It's a fair question. Why don't they just go to a shelter? I mean, isn't that what the safety net is for? And while that makes logical sense, the reality on the ground is way more complicated. First off, in most cities, shelters are completely full, with long wait lists. But even if there is a bed, many have strict rules that just don't work for a working family. Curfews can conflict with a late-night work shift, and some shelters separate families by gender, which for most parents is an absolute non-starter.
When you add in legitimate concerns about safety and theft, you can start to see why for many, the car feels like the safer, more stable choice.
And this gets to the absolute core of the issue. This isn't some natural market force we can't control. The shortage of affordable housing is the direct result of choices. For decades, many cities have used zoning laws that make it nearly impossible to build affordable, multifamily housing. We've systematically underfunded public housing. These were deliberate decisions, and now we're seeing the predictable and devastating results.
So what do? What does a path out of this look like? Well, right now, cities are basically choosing between two very different approaches, one that punishes and one that supports.
And the difference is night and day. The punitive approach, handing out tickets, towing cars, passing laws to make sleeping in a vehicle illegal, it doesn't solve anything. It just makes people's lives harder and pushes the problem into the next neighborhood over. But the supportive approach? That's where you start to see real change, by creating an actual path back to stability.
One of the most effective solutions we're seeing pop up are called safe parking programs. The idea is simple. It's a designated lot, maybe at a church or a community center, where families can park their cars overnight without getting harassed or ticketed. They often have basic things like restrooms and security, but the real game changer is that they connect people with social workers who can help them navigate the system. It's not a permanent home, but it's a vital first step, a safe space to breathe and start to rebuild.
And I think this is the single most important takeaway. We're not talking about people who failed the system. We're talking about a system that failed them. These are people who are working, raising their kids, and doing everything they can, but they've been crushed by an economic system where the cost of a basic roof over your head has become disconnected from the value of a hard day's work. They didn't fall through the cracks. The cracks are the system itself.
So that's where we are. The causes of this crisis are clear. It's about wages, it's about the cost of rent, and it's about decades of policy choices that have left working families with nowhere to go. We know how we got here. The only question now is, what choices are we going to make to get out of it? Because this will only get worse until we decide to build a system that actually has a place for everyone.